Good evening, y'all. Good Sunday evening. I wanted to do a live stream today about Diddy's trial that is, to me, officially kicking off tomorrow because they're going to nail down the jury and they're also going to have opening remarks tomorrow. So, I know there's been a lot in the news the last few days about picking a jury and then not selecting certain people and some of the stories around that, some names we heard and what was released. So it's been a lot going on. But tomorrow, Monday, is the day. So a couple of things I want to cover in this live is just I want to talk a little bit about I want to also touch on finally, like Michael B. Jordan and his name being mentioned in the Diddy case. So let's start with this article that's on Reuters around Sean Diddy Combs' lawyers plan to accuse ex-girlfriend of domestic violence at sex trafficking trial. So, pardon me. So when I saw this, it was kind of shocking to me when I saw this that they were actually going to try to use that, Cassie was just as violent. They're going to admit that there was domestic violence involved and that Diddy is guilty of domestic violence. But from what I understand, and we'll see if this article says something different, from what I understand, Diddy's lawyer's position is going to be that they were violent towards each other. So let's get into this article and see if there's more maybe here that I'm not aware of. So this article was published on May 9th, and it says lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs on Friday said they plan to accuse the hip hop mogul's ex-girlfriend of domestic violence when she takes the stand in his sex trafficking trial. Combs has pleaded not guilty to one count of racketeering conspiracy, two counts of sex trafficking, and two counts of transportation for prostitution, all felonies. He could face decades or even life in prison if convicted at the trial in the Manhattan federal court. Now, there was a report in the news too that Diddy had been offered a plea agreement that he denied, but from everything I saw, no one knows for sure yet, like what was in that plea deal. And I've heard some people comment on because of his age, let's say they gave him a plea deal that was like 15 years, that he and probably his attorneys would consider that a life sentence. So that probably was a factor. People are speculating with the type of charges that he has, whatever the plea deal was, it wasn't going to be something super light, right? So maybe that's why he decided to take his chances with this trial. From what I've heard people report, also, if he's found guilty, he literally could spend the rest of his life in jail with years upwards of 20, 25 years. So there's that. So the article goes on to say defense lawyer Mark Agnifilio, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, told U.S. District Judge Arn Subramanian during a hearing Friday that he plans to show there was mutual violence between Combs and his ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Cassie Ventura, who is expected to testify as a star witness for the prosecution. I think we're probably going to refer to that as domestic violence. Agnifilio, again, I know I'm pronouncing that horribly, arguing Ventura's alleged history of violence would undercut prosecutors' argument that she was a victim. Ventura's lawyers declined to comment on Agnefilo's remarks. Subramanian appeared disinclined to allow the defense to introduce evidence of any alleged violence by Ventura, but said he would rule on the issue on Monday, when a jury of 12 New Yorkers is set to be finalized ahead of opening statements by defense lawyers and prosecutors. So they as was reported in other places, Diddy's lawyers are intending to admit to domestic violence, but claim that it was mutual. So that is a strategy that they're taking on. The judge is considering whether or not he will allow, or she will allow, I think it's a woman judge, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. But the judge is going to make a decision on whether they will allow them to do that. So if the judge decides that, first of all, this is going to be an interesting sale. And with juries, one thing we've learned over time is that you never know. Just when you think you know, there's no way. I always think of the Casey Anthony situation. I knew this lady was going to be found guilty and not guilty. So you never know with a jury. So this is an interesting angle that they're taking. I think the toughest thing for Diddy, I think, is that videotape. But it's going to be interesting, and I'm assuming that's why Diddy is hiring or has hired a lawyer, a woman lawyer, to cross Cassie, because that's not going to go over well if men are crossing Cassie, male lawyers, and they're coming at her from the angle of you were also violent to Diddy, because that's a part of their strategy. They're going to say that it was mutual violence. So article goes on to say Combs 55 was present in the courtroom Friday, sported graying hair and a sweater over a white shirt. He has been held in federal lockup in Brooklyn since his arrest last September. Combs, a Harlem native who founded the pioneering record label Bad Boy Records and discovered iconic rappers, including the notorious B.I.G., was arrested last September and has been held in a Brooklyn federal lockup since then. That was also an interesting thing, because all reports indicated that when Diddy stayed where he was, of course, his lawyers encouraged him to turn himself in, because that if you look like you're running, you look like you're guilty. So, but they went into that assuming that there will be absolutely no issues with getting him out on bond, with him putting up so much property and all of that type of thing. But that did not go according to how they thought it would go, because bond was denied. I've lost count at this point how many times bond was denied to Diddy. So the article goes on to say that prosecutors with the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office say that for 2 decades, Combs used his business empire to lure women into his orbit with promises of romantic relationships or financial support, then violently coerced them to take part in days-long drug-fueled sexual performances known as freak-offs. Combs' lawyers have said prosecutors are improperly seeking to criminalize Combs' quote-unquote swinger lifestyle. They have signaled they plan to attack the credibility of the alleged victims, who will testify by seeking to show they had financial incentives to accuse Combs. They have said the women gave inconsistent accounts of the alleged assaults to investigators. So we see Diddy's lawyer strategy. One, they're going to say that the violence was mutual, and two, as it relates to all of the sex that was going off, the freak off, they're going to say that was a part of the swinger lifestyle and that there were no victims there. Subramanian has said the trial will last around 8 weeks, with the alternate jurors serving as backups in case jurors are unable to finish. Any verdict must be unanimous. Let's see if that is the end of the article. I think it is, because again, this article is just reporting what other outlets have also reported. Again, Diddy's attorneys are going to make the case that the violence was mutual, and they're also going to say that the freak-offs were a part of the swinging lifestyle and there were no victims there. So these are some interesting strategies, and it's going to be interesting to see if any of that works, because I think that's a hard sell, especially if you're going to go in and say the violence between Cassie and I was mutual. It's a hard sell, I think, on the face of it alone. But with that videotape, I mean, I think that's a bad strategy, but that makes me feel like his lawyers must not have anything, because why would you use that as a strategy? The other thing about the freak offs being consensual, he might have a leg to stand on there far as influencing the jurors, because the reason I say that, if they're able to even mention all of the cases that have been presented against Diddy now, the civil cases, it's a long list, and I'm gonna share some of that here. Not go through each case, but just show you the cases. I think the amount of cases that have been brought against Diddy might actually work in his favor. So hear me out. The reason why I say that is, just like the few cases that have been thrown out, because I guess whatever the determination was, no merit to him, whatever the determination was, or the basis for the determination, there have been several cases that have been thrown out. So I think the overwhelming number of cases against Diddy might work in his favor, because I think lawyers will want jurors to say, "Look at these people," and will want them to loop in even people who really may sound like a true victim. They're going to say, look at these people, look at these stories. I mean, people are coming out of the woodwork. It's absolutely none of all of this is not real. They're just coming, the thing they've been talking. They're coming after him because of his fame, his money, etc. Look at this laundry list of victims. I mean, you got over 60 people talking about Diddy did this, Diddy did that. It's just egregious. And if it wasn't, then why were some of the cases thrown out? So I think his lawyers are definitely going to take that angle. And again, I don't think they have a whole lot to work with. So they probably got to take whatever angle they can. I'm going to pull up let's see, let's take a look now at why Michael B. Jordan name was referenced. And I know Kid Cudi's name was referenced too, but what really caught my attention was the mentioning of Michael B. Jordan's name. Because I can tell you right now, when I heard Michael B. Jordan's name was mentioned, I was just like, I don't want to take a L. I don't want our culture to have to take a L on Michael B. Jordan. I was just like, Lord, please don't let this be. Don't, please, whatever this is, just don't let it be too bad. So I would hate. Could you imagine if Michael B. Jordan was actually pulled into some of this stuff? I mean, could you just imagine how horrible that would be? That would just be unthinkable. Unthinkable. Okay, so I am going to add the page here. Hold on one second so I can share my screen with you all. And I don't know for sure what time the trial is starting in the morning, with them still having to settle on like the jurors, the first thing tomorrow morning. It might be like 1 tomorrow morning. Sure was on the news. I think Friday he was on Good Morning New York, and he has a book coming out in the fall. I think the name of his book is "Do You Believe Me Now?" So Al B. Sure is still saying that Kim did not die of natural causes. Al B. Sure is also saying that Diddy had something to do with him almost dying and being in a coma and having organ failure. So, maybe I'll be sure is telling everything. Who knows? There's a lot of people who definitely feel that there's more to the story with how Kim Porter passed away. The thing with Al B. Sure and how he's talking about now that he had for years tried to make people aware of what was going on with Diddy, and I'll be sure is suggesting that nobody would really hear him out. And it's hard to tell, like, is that really what happened? I'll be sure. Did you really try to do that? Or did you just like turn your son over to be raised by Diddy? And what? I mean, it just, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Albie Shore coming out with all this stuff. I definitely don't feel in no kind of way like I'm trying to protect Diddy, because Diddy did a lot of what he's being accused of, okay, in my opinion. But it's just I think about Albie Shore and I'm like, I wonder what is the relationship right now with your son. Are you interested in trying to, connect with your son in any real way right now with all of this going on? Because whatever the story was with him and Kim and Sean, as he calls him, you did turn your son over to be raised by this man. And so if you had been all along these years trying to make people aware of what the deal was with him, I mean, did you try to get your son out? Is what I'm asking. Did you try to get your son out of this situation? And I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that his biological son right now is still standing 10 toes down beside Diddy. So I'm sure that's a complicated story. So anyway, here's the article about why Kid Cudi and Michael B. Jordan came up during jury selection at Sean Combs' trial. Okay, so the article says some familiar names have come up in court as jury selection continues in the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. The pool of prospective jurors has been asked to review a list of people and places that may be referenced during the trial. Actor and producer Michael B. Jordan, rapper Kid Cudi, comedian Mike Myers, rapper Young Miami, interesting, Kanye West, and Combs' former girlfriend Cassie Ventura were among several celebrities whose names were said in court during jury selection on Monday. So I'm going to see what the rest of this article says. Like I said, when I first heard Michael B. Jordan, I was alarmed because I'm like, and I think I speak for a lot of people within our culture. We're not trying to take an L on Michael B. Jordan. So I was just like, Lord, please don't let it be. Let's not let it be something crazy like we got Michael B. Jordan on some tapes or something wild like that. So I was very curious to find out why was Michael B. Jordan's name mentioned. Young Miami to me is interesting because I'm curious to see is she going to end up being a witness in this case, and if she is a witness in this case, will she be a witness for the defense or the prosecution? I wonder because she made some comments to this woman that Diddy was dating at the same time he was dating her. That sounded along the. I think she said something on social media to the lady like Diddy will make you get on your knees for me or something. She said, and it just sounded like whatever life this is that Diddy's into, she was definitely down with it. That was suggested. So it's going to be interesting to see if she's called, because if she's called for the prosecution, then I'm going to think maybe they made some kind of deal with her. I don't know, but interesting. Kanye, and Mike Myers. I have no idea why Mike Myers was called or mentioned to the jurors to see if they were familiar with him at all. I heard a little bit historically about Kid Cudi and Diddy, so I kind of knew why Kid Cudi was here. But like I said, Michael B. Jordan caught me off guard because I was just like, why is Michael B. Jordan being mentioned in the Diddy trial fiasco? Okay, so the article says Jordan, who is currently starring in Sinners, will not be called as a witness to testify during the trial. Oh, I need one of those sound effects right now for applause or something. Because yeah, I don't need no, we don't need him over there with any of this stuff. Okay, so Jordan's name is on the list that was presented to the jury, according to the source, because he was referenced in Cassie Ventura's 2023 lawsuit against Combs, though not by name. Now that is very, very interesting. So Michael B. Jordan's name is in this situation with Diddy because Cassie mentioned a situation with him in her 2023 lawsuit against Combs that he paid her, I believe, $30 million. Um, And so she mentioned a situation with him. So let's go on and see what the article says. In her complaint, which was quickly settled with Combs soon after it was filed, Ventura alleged that during a 2015 break in her relationship with Combs, she began a flirtatious relationship with an actor, which CNN has now learned was Jordan. Okay. Ventura claimed in her suit that she had spent New Year's Eve with Jordan, and when Combs learned that information, he called the actor and threatened him. Now, I don't have, I believe that 100%. I believe 100% that Diddy called Michael B. Jordan and threatened him about seeing Cassie. So the article goes on to say, a representative for Jordan did not respond to CNN's request for a comment. Kid Cudi is identified by name in Ventura's civil suit against Combs as a former boyfriend with whom she had a brief relationship with in 2011 during a rough patch in her relationship with Combs. Ventura alleged in her civil claim that Combs found emails between her and Kid Cudi and became enraged at Ventura, later telling her that he was going to blow up Kid Cudi's car. And that was around that time Kid Cudi's car exploded in his driveway. Okay, let me continue. So the article says representatives for Kid Cudi confirmed Ventura's account to the New York Times in 2023. This is all true, a spokesperson for the artist said at the time. CNN has reached out to representatives for Kid Cudi for comment. So Kid Cudi is saying he's not dancing around it, that yes, Diddy was upset that Cassie and I were seeing each other, and he had my car blown up in my driveway. So it's going to be interesting to see if they bring Kid Cudi into court to testify about that. So, in the government's indictment, Combs is accused of acts of violence, including arson, though it is unclear if prosecutors are referring to the same incident with Kid Cudi. Combs previously denied the allegations in Ventura's lawsuit at the time of the settlement. An attorney for Combs said it was in no way an admission of wrongdoing. Interesting. Mr. Combs' decision to settle the lawsuit does not in any way undermine his flat out denial of the claims. Well, that's what a lawyer is supposed to say. A lawyer might have also told him to settle before it got to where it got and Cassie released this information publicly. But now I'm gonna tell you, looking back on this, because he wasn't going to pay up or give her any money based off of what she was saying he put her through. But once she filed that case and it got so public so fast, he definitely, I think he still wasn't going to budge, but it was the release actually of the videotape of him beating her in that hotel. That is what ultimately led to him saying, let me pay her so I can make this go away. And I think about that now because with the case that they brought against Diddy, even if he had paid her before she actually filed the paperwork, the public may not have known about what she was going to sue him for in civil court. But I think the federal case, I think that was still going to go regardless. And I think a good indicator of that is the fact that Cassie did get paid the $30 million. I think it's a new number that has been reported. And this federal case is still going forward. That is that is inconsequential to how the feds are moving in this case, whatever civil case was settled. So settled or not. So that's why I'm saying if Diddy had paid Cassie this money prior to her filing the case so that it wouldn't be the public thing it became, I think he still would have ended up in the situation that he's in because of the videotape. And I think, and this may be a little bit conspiracy theory here, but I think the feds had a lot to do with that videotape being released because they knew they were going after Diddy. And I feel like in the court of even public opinion, they know that a tape like that would make everything moving forward with Diddy a bit easier, especially as far as getting the conviction. So let's see. The article goes on to say it is common for jurors to be asked about the names that might surface during the trial. Judges do that in an abundance of caution to ensure every potential connection is explored to find jurors without conflicts who can be fair and impartial. The list also includes the names of attorneys involved in the case. A name being included on the list does not indicate whether the individual will testify or even be directly involved with the trial. But it is possible that some of the names presented to jurors could come up during witness testimony. And if I look at that list of entertainers that they mentioned, if Michael B. Jordan gets called, he's going to get called by the defense to back up Cassie's story that Diddy did call him and threaten him when he heard that they were going out. Okay. Um, Young Miami, I could definitely see her being called. I cannot imagine anybody calling Kanye West to the stand for anything, just simply from the perspective of attorneys want to be able to have call up people that they feel like they know what they're going to say, right? So I can't see the defense calling Kanye, and I can't see the prosecution also calling Kanye because neither side could depend on what is it that he's literally going to say once he gets on stand. So if Kanye got called to the witness stand, I would be totally shocked by that. But I could see Michael B. Jordan being called to kind of back up Cassie's story if they feel like they need that. And again, Young Miami, I think, yeah, she could definitely end up on the witness list. So the last paragraph here is that Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that include racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. If convicted on all counts, he could face up to life in prison. So this trial kicks off tomorrow. And with the opening comments, like I said, the first few hours of the case tomorrow, they are going to be finally nailing down the jury. They were supposed to have all of that finalized last week, but it didn't get done. So they're going to pick that up tomorrow morning, as I understand it. And then opening remarks are going to be made. So we will see how that goes tomorrow, because I'm definitely, and it's so bad they don't have cameras in federal court. So, but there will be reporters, from what I understand, who will be there and who will be reporting from inside the court, right? So we'll be getting stuff kind of fast, I think, especially on social media and some of the channels on YouTube, like Law and Crime and stuff like that. So I think we'll be getting information pretty fast about what's happening in court. I cannot wait to see the transcripts of the people who are going to I'm sorry, I cannot wait to hear the transcripts of the lawyers in their opening remarks. I mean, we already know. I want to hear, how does Diddy's lawyers phrase their strategy when their strategy is including, one, they're going to try to make the case or convince the jurors that the domestic violence was mutual, as we saw in one of the articles we went over. And they're also going to be trying to convince the jury that the freak-offs were all consensual, and that there were no victims in that situation. So I really want to listen to those opening remarks tomorrow, because it's going to be interesting to see how do they pull that off. The last thing I want to touch on before I end this live, I mentioned earlier, like the list of, accusers who have come forward, and, whether it's going to be a part of the case that starts tomorrow with the opening remarks or part of some of the other civil cases that have been filed. There's a long list, right? So this list let's see here. The following is a list of the people who have publicly accused Combs from the first lawsuit filed by Cassie in November 2023 to the most recent suit in April 2025. The abuse is alleged to have taken place as early as 1991. Okay, so if you see this list here, it starts with Cassie and Joy Dickerson Neal, who was a college student who claimed Combs drugged, assaulted, and abused her in 1991 and recorded the incident on videotape, which was distributed to others in the music industry. Eliza Gardner claimed Diddy and guy singer Aaron Hall took turns raping her and a friend after meeting the pair at an MCA Records event in either 1990 or 1991. She initially filed her lawsuit anonymously. Anna Kane, a then 17-year-old who alleged Diddy and former Bad Boy Entertainment president Harve Pierre gang raped her. A year after her filing anonymously in December 2023, a judge ruled she had to reveal her identity. Rodney Little Rod Jones Jr., the Love album producer who claimed Combs groped, sexually harassed, and assaulted him, facilitated others, including then girlfriend Young Miami's cousin and Cuba Gooding Jr., to assault him and has not paid him for thousands of hours of work. Grace O'Makaya, a steward who claimed Diddy's son Christian Combs assaulted and harassed her on a yacht the family chartered in 2022. The woman claimed Diddy aided and abetted his youngest son. This might be, I'm not sure if this is the case. I know there's one case with Diddy and one of his sons that has been dismissed, and I'm not sure if this is the case or not. But anyway, this list that I'm reading from, you can see here, this list goes all the way to the number 33. Okay, so there's 33 accusers on this list, with allegations ranging as far going as far back as 1991. Then there's a list of Diddy anonymous accusers, right? A Louisiana woman claimed Combs sexually assaulted her at his fatal City College charity game in 1991. She said he sexually assaulted her while his bodyguard was standing watch outside of the record executive's makeshift dressing room. Another anonymous accuser said, or is a woman who was 16 years old when she allegedly auditioned to be a backup dancer for Combs in 1993. She said in February 2020, she said in a February 2025 lawsuit that a man named Kay took her to a home near Long Island, New York, where she was allegedly drugged and Combs assaulted her. She awoke hours later in a car, bloodied and in pain. She said she didn't report the incident out of fear, but after her parents learned of the assault, she allegedly received medical attention. So if you see, we had, what did we have? 33? We had, yes, 33 accusers, known accusers on the civil suit list. And some of those, Cassie being the first person on that list, is definitely coming into the criminal charges that will be in court tomorrow. But on this anonymous list, there is also a total number of 45 accusers, right? So 33 known accusers. We know who they are. We have their name. And then there is a list of 45 anonymous accusers. So that's a lot of folks. And that is why I am saying that the overwhelming number of cases, I think his lawyers will attempt to use that as evidence that there's a lot of well, they won't say a lot because they're saying Diddy's not guilty of any of this stuff. So I think they're going to use this 70 plus list of accusers, combining known and anonymous accusers. I think they're going to definitely use that number to say this is nothing more than a witch hunt, people coming after somebody who's famous. It's a money grab, and I think some of those cases being dismissed again are actually going to help Diddy, because some of the cases were thrown out. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Again, I'm not sure what time the jury or the proceedings are going to start in the morning, but I'm definitely going to be tuned in. I may, if there's a good feed or good notes on a particular channel about what's happening in court, I definitely plan to be up and listening to that and seeing what we can glean from that. I'm hoping again that somebody will, and I'm sure the press will, print transcripts of the opening comments, the opening remarks, the opening statements. And if so, I'll probably do a live tomorrow just to review the opening statements, because I believe those are going to be a doozy. So we will definitely check in tomorrow to see what's going on with the Diddy case. Thank you all so much for watching this live. Please give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And I appreciate your time. Have a good night. Bye.